The day my parents chose wealth over family, a heartbreaking story. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. My mother cried into the fundraiser's microphone and thanked God for her 2 children, and I wasn't one of them. I was standing in the back of the ballroom, next to a stack of silent auction baskets that smelled like cellophane and perfume. I'd come straight from my shift at the county hospital, scrubs under a borrowed blazer, because Jonah texted, "Can you please just come? They're saying your name." I'm Maya, 29, a hospital social worker in a city that never runs out of crises. I'm the person who finds a shelter bed at 2 a.m., who begs for a voucher, who sits with families when the doctor says, "We did everything we could." I'm good at staying calm while other people fall apart. That night, my parents were the ones falling apart, beautifully, publicly, on schedule. Diane stood under a spotlight in a silver dress that caught every camera flash. Paul hovered a step behind her, hands clasped like a pastor. Their friends from the gated hills laughed too loudly and waved champagne flutes. The banner behind them read Diane and Paul Rennert Foundation Gala in gold letters. And then Diane said it. "As a mother," she sniffed, "I just want to honor my children, Jonah," and she paused, like she'd forgotten a line. Her smile tightened. Jonah and his future. The room clapped anyway. Paul didn't flinch. My phone vibrated again. From Jonah, "They're doing it. Please don't make a scene." I hadn't planned a scene. I planned to breathe through it like I do at work. But then I saw the program in a guest's hand. Under special thanks, there was an itemized list of donors and a line that made my stomach flip. Anonymous gift, escrow release $48,700, March 12th. March 12th was the day my parents chose money over me in a hospital hallway. I'd spent years pretending it was a misunderstanding. I stood there, heart hammering, and realized tonight wasn't just a gala. It was my parents rewriting history in front of witnesses. And I had proof in my bag that could light the whole room on fire. When people met my parents, they said the same things. "They're so generous. They're so close. You must be proud." I used to nod like it was true. We lived in the kind of suburb where the mailboxes matched and the HOA sent notices about grass height. Diane ran everything like an event. Holiday dinners, school photos, even grief. When my grandmother died, Diane handed me a black dress in a garment bag and said, "No puffy eyes. People will think we're not coping." Paul was softer, at least on the surface. He'd wink and slide me $20 for gas, call me kiddo, promise me he'd always take care of us. But care, in my parents' world, came with receipts. The year I graduated college, Diane threw a party bigger than I wanted. She introduced me to a woman from her charity board as our investment. I laughed like it was a joke because laughing was easier than noticing how my mother's fingers tightened on my shoulder. A month later, when I told them I'd taken a job at the county hospital, Diane's smile froze. "You're going to burn out," she said, like burnout was a bad haircut. And it's not on brand. Paul tried the gentler route. "Why not something corporate? HR maybe? Better benefits." He said benefits like it was love. The transaction became obvious when Jonah got accepted to a private college and my parents acted like they'd been admitted too. Diane started calling it our campus. Paul opened a new account for Jonah's future and loved mentioning it at dinners. Then Diane called me into the kitchen one night, put a manila folder on the counter, and said, "We need you to sign something for the family." I flipped it open and saw a title I didn't recognize. Renunciation of beneficiary interest. "What is this?" I asked. Diane's voice stayed sweet. "It's a formality. It keeps things clean." Paul leaned in, still smiling. "It's just paperwork, Maya. Don't be dramatic." I didn't sign. I said I wanted to read it. Diane's eyes went flat in a way I'd never seen before. "Sweetheart," she said, "if you're not with us, you're against us." 2 weeks later, on March 12th, Jonah called me from campus, panicked and whispering. "They said you're trying to ruin us," he said, "and now Dad won't answer me." March 12th started like any other Thursday. Bad coffee, my pager buzzing, a stack of discharge plans. At 10:17 a.m., I took a bite of a coworker's gluten-free muffin and felt my throat tighten. It wasn't a rash or a sneeze. It was panic in my body. Air stopped moving the way it should. The world narrowed to fluorescent light and the sharp, clean smell of disinfectant. A nurse slammed an AP pen into my thigh. Someone shoved an oxygen mask over my face. My hands puffed up like balloons. I kept thinking, not today, not now. Somebody called my emergency contact, the number Diane insisted I list for appearances. When my parents arrived, I was upright, but shaking so hard the paper sheet crackled. Diane came in first, bracelet charms clinking, hair perfect like she'd dressed for a meeting. Paul followed with a leather portfolio, calm as ever. "Oh, Maya," Diane sighed, like I'd spilled wine on her rug. A doctor stepped out. "She's stable, but we need insurance information and consent for observation. There's a risk of rebound." Paul nodded. "Of course." I waited for an insurance card. Instead, he opened his portfolio and slid papers onto my bed tray. "Sign this," he said, still smiling. The header made my stomach drop. Renunciation of beneficiary interest. Under it, escrow release authorization, $48, $700, March 12th. "You brought this here?" My voice sounded shredded. Diane's smile stayed fixed. "The escrow office is holding funds for our foundation pledge. They need your signature to finalize the release." "I'm in the ER." Paul's voice stayed even. "It has to happen today. If it doesn't, it triggers a review. An audit. People ask questions." The doctor tried again. "Her health comes first." Diane laughed lightly, like he'd told a joke. "She's fine. She's always dramatic." I stared at the pen. My fingers still trembled. "Why is my name on your escrow?" Paul's smile thinned. "Because you're listed in a trust we're cleaning up." Diane leaned close, perfume and control. "You either sign and we take care of you," she whispered, "or you handle your bills alone." I pushed the papers back. "No." Paul closed his portfolio with a soft click. Diane's expression didn't change, but her eyes went flat. "Then we can't help you," Paul said, and they walked out. They didn't just walk out of the room. They walked out of my life like they were late for lunch. The nurse came back with discharge papers and a billing packet thick enough to be a phone book. "Do you have someone to take you home?" she asked. I stared at my phone until the screen went dark. I had a missed call from Diane, one voicemail. I listened, still dizzy. "Maya, we tried." Her voice said, airy and annoyed. "But you made this difficult. We can't risk an audit because you're emotional. Call us when you're ready to be reasonable." At the bottom of my discharge paperwork was a note. Patient declined coverage information. I hadn't declined anything. I hadn't even been asked again. When I got home to my apartment, my key didn't work. At first I thought I'd grabbed the wrong ring. Then I noticed the envelope taped to the door. Notice to vacate. Non-payment. My landlord's handwriting was familiar. He was also Paul's golf buddy. My hands started shaking all over again, not from allergies this time. I called the landlord. He didn't pick up. I called Paul. Straight to voicemail. Diane answered on the third ring. "Mom," I said, "my key doesn't work." Diane sighed like she'd been expecting this. "We had to make some adjustments. Your father has been covering that apartment for you. If you're going to sabotage the family, you can't expect family money." "I'm not sabotaging anything," I said, voice cracking. "I was in the ER." "You were fine," she replied. "This is about choices." Paul finally texted one line. "We'll talk when you sign." I sat on my steps with my work bag and my discharge papers and tried to breathe slow like I taught patience. The street smelled like rain and exhaust. People walked past me like I was a broken lamp. That night, I slept on a friend's couch and went to work the next morning pretending I wasn't falling apart. By 3 p.m., HR called me into a tiny office and slid a document across the desk. "Your benefits were terminated," the woman said quietly, "effective today." I stared at the date stamp and realized my parents had moved faster than my shock. The next few weeks blurred into survival math. Bus fare versus groceries, copay versus rent, pride versus asking for help. I took extra shifts and ate whatever was free in the hospital break room. Saltines, granola bars, a cup of yogurt someone forgot. I slept wherever I could, a coworker's spare room, then Aunt Rosa's pull-out couch when she found out. Rosa lived in a small duplex across town with a porch that sagged but felt honest. She didn't ask me to smile. She handed me a blanket and said, "You look like you're trying to disappear." "I just need time," I told her. "Time doesn't fix people who make plans to hurt you," she said. "Paper fixes them." She shoved a spiral notebook into my hand. "Write dates. Save texts. Screenshot everything." I tried not to think about my parents, but they kept finding ways to remind me they existed. A credit card got closed. My phone plan bounced. My car insurance lapsed, and I got pulled over because my registration was tied to Paul's address. Every small humiliation carried the same message: we can still reach you. I started keeping my belongings in my car like I was always about to be evicted. The loneliness was physical, like a bruise you can't stop touching. Jonah was the only crack in the wall. At first he sent one-word texts. You okay? Sorry. Then, they're mad. Then, please stop making it worse. After a 12-hour shift where I'd placed a kid in foster care, I sat in my car and sobbed until my chest hurt. My phone buzzed. From Jonah. I heard Mom say your name. She called you a risk. I typed, what does that mean? He didn't respond for an hour. Then, Dad said if you sign, you can come back. If not, you're dead to them. I stared at the word dead until it stopped looking real. Rosa found me at 2 a.m. with my laptop open, scrolling old family emails like they were evidence. Baby, she said, they didn't just cut you off. They're building a story. A story for who? I asked. Rosa's eyes narrowed. Then she pulled a folded letter from her purse. It came to my house by mistake, she said, and it has your name on it. The letter was addressed to Diane Rennert, but the window showed my name in tiny print underneath, like an afterthought. Rosa set it on the table between us like it might bite. I didn't open it, she said. I just saw the return address. The return address was a bank I recognized from Paul's stories, Meridian Private Trust. The kind of place with frosted glass and a lobby that smells like expensive wood. I slit the envelope open with a butter knife. Inside was a single-page notice with the kind of language people use when they're trying to sound calm about something immoral. Notice of beneficiary change requested. Account, MPT 4471. Requested effective date, March 12th. Pending release amount, $48,700. Action required. Notarized consent from beneficiary, Maya Rennert. My throat went tight all over again. So I wasn't a random name, I whispered. They needed me. Rosa tapped the date with her nail. Same day you almost died. My parents had told everyone, me included, that they had no choice. That the escrow was tied to a pledge. That an audit would ruin them. That it was all for Jonah's future. This notice said something else. A beneficiary change requested, a release pending, and my notarized consent required. Not a hostage situation. A plan. I flipped the page over, hoping for more. There was only a reference number and a line at the bottom. For questions, contact escrow services, Ms. T. Larkin. My hands shook so hard the paper rattled. Rosa slid her phone toward me. Screenshot it, she said. Send it to yourself. Email it. Back it up. I did, like muscle memory from work. Document, document, document. Then I stared at the name Ms. T. Larkin until it burned. What do you want to do? Rosa asked. I thought about my mother's voicemail. We can't risk an audit because you're emotional. I thought about the gala program that listed an anonymous escrow release, like it was charity. I want to understand, I said. I want to know why my signature was worth more than my life. Rosa nodded once. Then you start where paper lives. The next morning, I took the bus downtown to the county clerk's office and typed my father's name into public records search. The screen loaded, and my stomach dropped at what popped up. The county clerk's database didn't feel dramatic. It felt like shopping, drop-down menus, bland fonts, paywalls. I searched Paul Rennert, added our suburb, and a result hit me like a slap. Quit claim deed, filed March 13th. The day after my ER visit. I paid $2.50, opened the PDF on a sticky public computer, and read the transfer. A small duplex on the edge of the city, from Paul Rennert and Diane Rennert to Rennert Foundation Holdings, LLC. A second filing sat underneath it. Lease termination notice, tenant, Maya Rennert, effective March 14th. They hadn't just stopped helping. They'd moved my housing under a foundation entity and cut me loose like a bad expense. I called the number on the Meridian notice during my lunch break. 3 transfers. A receptionist who sounded allergic to empathy. When I asked for Ms. T. Larkin, she put me on hold with soft piano music. A woman picked up. Larkin, my name is Maya Rennert, I said. I got a notice about account MPT 4471. Why am I listed as a beneficiary? A pause. I can't discuss account details. My parents said it was about an audit. I pressed. What is the $48,700? Her voice went careful. If you want clarity, request the trust instrument through counsel. I don't have counsel, I said. I have the date you filed the change request, March 12th. Silence long enough to hear her breathing. Speak to the account holder, she repeated, and ended the call. After work, Rosa and I rode the bus downtown to Meridian's office anyway. Marble floors, a fountain, a security desk that looked like it could smell debt. We weren't allowed past the lobby, but we didn't need to be. An older man in a security blazer stepped out of the elevator bank, spotted Rosa, and froze. Rosa Alvarez? Rosa's mouth fell open. Eddie. His eyes flicked to me. Something like guilt crossed his face. You're Diane's sister. I'm her sister, Rosa said. This is Maya. Eddie swallowed. Oh, you're the one. The one what? I asked. He leaned in, voice low. The one they said would never find out. Then he slid Rosa a business card with 2 words scrawled on the back. On the back, 2 words told me this wasn't a donation. Ask for charity sounded like a joke until the next day, when I did exactly that. I took a late lunch and went back to the county building. This time to the probate window, where people clutch folders like life rafts. I told the clerk I needed copies of anything that referenced my name under the Rennert Foundation. She raised an eyebrow. You're listed on a trust? She asked. I think so, I said. I didn't agree to it. She slid a form toward me. Fill this out. There's a small fee. 20 minutes later, she handed me a thin packet stamped received with the county seal. The first page was a trust summary. Not the full document, just the cover sheet required for filing. But it was enough to make my skin go cold. Rennert Family Legacy Trust. Settler, Diane Rennert. Trustee, Paul Rennert. Contingent beneficiary, Jonah Rennert. Primary beneficiary, Maya Rennert. Primary, not contingent. Primary. My parents had made me the front-facing owner of something they didn't want tied to their names, then punished me for not playing along. On page 2 was a notarized consent form. The signature line said Maya Rennert. It wasn't my handwriting. The loop on the M was wrong. The way the Y dipped was wrong. It looked like someone who'd seen my signature once and tried to mimic it. My throat went dry. This is forged, I whispered. Rosa's knuckles went white around the edge of the packet. They signed for you. The clerk leaned over, curious despite herself. You sure? I pulled up an old lease renewal on my phone. My real signature from years ago. I laid it next to the notarized form. Even a stranger could see the difference. Rosa hissed. That's a crime. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I felt nauseous. If they could forge my name on a trust consent, what else could they forge? How deep did this go? And then the clerk pointed at the notary block. Notary. T. Larkin, she said. Same as your bank notice? My heart thudded. She notarized a fake signature. Rosa looked at me like she'd just realized the real danger. Maya, if they can prove you consented, they can make you responsible. Responsible for what? The question hit hard when my phone buzzed with a new text from Jonah. It was a photo of an eviction notice, addressed to him. Jonah's photo made my stomach twist. A bright orange notice taped to a dorm door. Failure to maintain financial standing, it read. Under it, Jonah texted, I didn't tell you because Mom said it was temporary. They stopped paying. So that for Jonah's future speech was a lie too. Jonah met Rosa and me outside his building, hoodie up, eyes red. They said I have 48 hours, he whispered. Dad keeps saying it's your fault. In his backpack was a letter on the foundation's letterhead, signed by Paul. Jonah's support was suspended pending resolution of beneficiary dispute. Beneficiary dispute. Like I was suing them. Like I was greedy. That night, Rosa called Eddie. He didn't want to talk, but Rosa had a way of dragging truth out of people who owed it. Eddie met us behind a strip mall, far from Meridian's marble lobby. He kept scanning the parking lot like someone was about to tackle him. I shouldn't do this, he said, handing me a thin folder. But Diane's been using the foundation like a washing machine. Inside were escrow logs with reference numbers, dates, and amounts. March 12th, $48,700. Release pending. Beneficiary consent required. Below it were smaller releases, $9, $200, $12,500, each labeled donor directed. On the last page, a column was circled in pen. Nominee beneficiary. Under it, Maya Rennert. Nominee, I said, voice thin. Eddie's eyes finally met mine, and there was pity there. It means your name was used so the payments didn't trace back to Diane. Rose's jaw tightened. So they committed fraud. And if anyone asks, Eddie said, it looks like you were the one receiving the money. I felt heat crawl up my neck, the kind that comes before vomiting. My hands started shaking. Why me? Eddie hesitated, then said it in a rush, like ripping off a bandage. Because you're the only one with a clean record they could sacrifice. I stared at my name on that page until the letters blurred. My parents hadn't chosen wealth over family once. They'd built an entire system around choosing it over me. The next morning, my phone rang with a number I hadn't seen in years. Our old home landline. Diane used it when she wanted something to feel official. I answered. Hello. Paul's voice came first, warm and careful. Kiddo, we need to talk. About what you did to Jonah? I asked. A beat. About what you're doing, he corrected. Diane took the phone. I could hear the smile in her tone. Maya, sweetheart, you've always had a talent for spiraling. Rosa is filling your head with conspiracies. Conspiracies don't have county seals, I said. And my signature isn't your handwriting. Silence. Not surprise. Not denial. Just the quiet of people recalculating. Paul came back on, voice lowered like a negotiation. We can fix this. Pay Jonah's tuition, I said. We will, Diane replied quickly. If you stop making calls. Paul added. We'll transfer money to you today. Enough for rent. But you signed the consent, and you stopped contacting the bank. What do you call using my name as a nominee? I asked. You don't understand finance. Paul snapped, then softened again. If you keep pushing, you will ruin Jonah's future. A text popped up mid-call. From Jonah, please. They're saying they'll cut me off forever. Stop. My chest tightened. They had him pinned between survival and loyalty. I swallowed. Why did you forge my signature? Diane laughed softly, like I was a child who'd missed a lesson. Maya, no one forged anything. You were always meant to sign. You just didn't cooperate. Paul's warmth vanished. If you go public, we will protect ourselves. We have documentation. You have feelings. I looked at the escrow logs on Rose's table, at the notary block that didn't match my life, and felt something harden into focus. My hands stopped shaking for the first time in weeks, and my breathing steadied. You're wrong, I said. I have proof. Diane's voice turned cold. Then you leave us no choice. My phone buzzed with a credit alert. New inquiry, Meridian Private Trust. If my parents wanted to treat my life like paperwork, fine. Paper was my language now. Rosa and I made a list on her kitchen table. What we knew, what we needed, who could confirm it. I taped screenshots to the wall. Meridian notice, county trust cover sheet, quitclaim deed, the escrow log. Eddie risked his job to share. The credit inquiry scared me enough that I went to the courthouse on my day off and sat in the free legal clinic line. A volunteer attorney flipped through my packet, his eyebrows rising. This looks like identity fraud, he said, and possible misuse of charitable funds. Can I get the full trust? I asked. Not easily, he said, but you can pull the foundation's filings from the state charity registry, and you need to protect yourself with documentation. Protect myself. Against my own parents. That night Jonah called from a stairwell, voice tight. They said you're trying to destroy them, he whispered. Mom says if donors get spooked, everything falls apart. What falls apart? I asked. He hesitated. The foundation. The house. Dad's deals. Everything. Not losing me. Losing the mask. I didn't want a screaming match. I wanted witnesses and timestamps. The gala was in 5 days. Diane would be on stage again. Paul would be smiling again, surrounded by people who cared about reputation and paper trails. So I planned it like a case file. I requested the foundation's public filings from the state registry, every report tied to that $48,700 release. I printed my evidence in duplicate and highlighted the dates in yellow. Rosa helped me label folders like we were filing charges. You sure you're ready? She asked. I pictured Diane thanking God for 2 children while I stood in the dark. I didn't sleep. The printer hummed until 3 a.m., and my hands smelled like toner all night. I'm not doing this to hurt them, I said. I'm doing this so they can't hurt me anymore. Then an email from the registry hit my inbox, records ready to download. The gala smelled like lilies and money. I walked in with Rosa at my side and 2 folders in my bag, my heart thumping so hard I kept swallowing to steady it. Diane spotted us instantly. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Paul's hand tightened on his flute. Maya, Diane said, gliding over like nothing had happened. You made it. How brave. I'm here for the truth, I said. We didn't go to our seats. We went to the cluster of board members waiting near the stage. Jonah stood with them too, stiff, eyes darting like he wanted to disappear. I set the first folder on a cocktail table. "Before you speak," I said, loud enough for the circle to hear, "explain this." Diane's smile held. "Now isn't the time." "It's exactly the time," Rosa said. I opened the state registry filings, dates highlighted in yellow. "March 12th, I said, tapping the line. "Escrow release, $48,700. Labeled donor directed. Nominee beneficiary need." A board member frowned. "Nominee?" Paul stepped in, voice smooth. "Maya's confused. She's been under stress." I slid out the county trust cover sheet. "Primary beneficiary, Maya Rennert," I said. "And here's a notarized consent form with my forged signature." Diane's cheeks tightened. "Private family matter. It became public when you listed it as an anonymous gift." I replied, holding up the program. "You used my name to move money, then told everyone you had no choice because of an audit." Paul's eyes flashed. "Diane, what did you do?" Diane's head turned toward him, still smiling for nearby donors. "Don't," she hissed. I pointed to the notary block. "Notary, T. Larkin. Same person tied to Meridian." The circle went quiet. No music, no laughter, just the hum of a room realizing it might be complicit. Jonah's voice cracked. "Mom, is this real?" Diane snapped, low and vicious. "This is not your business." Paul's mask finally broke. "You told me she would sign. You told me it was clean." Diane's eyes burned. "You needed it to be clean." I watched them, and something in me settled. This wasn't a fight. It was a transaction. A board member leaned close and whispered, "Call the state investigator right now, please." Everything moved fast after that whisper, like the room had been waiting for permission. Board members pulled Diane aside. Someone demanded Paul's documentation. I felt eyes on me, curious, judging, hungry. Diane recovered first. She always did. She turned to a donor, voice trembling perfectly. "I'm so sorry," she said. "My daughter has been unwell. We've been trying to get her help." Unwell. The word hit harder than any insult because it was the same word she'd used my whole life to erase me. Security approached, not rough, just firm. "Ma'am," one guard said, "we need you to step outside." Rosa stepped in front of me. She hasn't done anything wrong. Outside in the cold air, my phone exploded with notifications. Unknown numbers. Then a text from Paul. "Return any documents you stole immediately." Stole. Like public filings were jewelry. An email hit my hospital inbox. Subject line, formal complaint. Diane had sent it to my supervisor in HR, claiming I'd harassed donors and misused hospital resources. Rosa read it over my shoulder and swore. "They're trying to poison your job." My supervisor called within an hour, voice careful. "Maya, I'm not saying this is true," she said, "but we have to place you on administrative leave while we review." Administrative leave meant no overtime, no safety net. My parents knew that. By midnight, a local gossip blog had a blurry photo of me labeled troubled daughter. That night, Jonah showed up at Rosa's door with a duffel bag. He looked hollow. "They kicked me out," he said. "Not the dorm. The family." He sat at the kitchen table, staring at the folders. "Mom said you're dead to her," he whispered. "Dad said if I stay here, he'll cut me off too." Rosa poured tea with shaking hands. I wanted to promise Jonah it would be okay, but all I could see was the way my parents moved. Fast, strategic, practiced. My phone buzzed again, and a number I recognized made my throat close. Meridian Private Trust called, and I knew it wasn't an accident. I let Meridian's call go to voicemail because I needed 1 second to breathe. The message came in clipped and professional. "Ms. Rennert, this is Meridian Private Trust. We have concerns regarding unauthorized activity tied to your identity. Please return our call." So it wasn't just my parents threatening me. The bank itself was noticing. The next day, I did what I tell clients to do when systems start swallowing them. Checklist, 1 step at a time. I froze my credit. I filed an identity theft report. At the courthouse, I filed a police report for the forged signature, attaching a side-by-side comparison of my real handwriting and the fake consent form. Saying my parents out loud to an officer felt like swallowing glass. Rosa sat beside me, steady. Jonah waited nearby with his duffel bag, staring at the floor like shame had weight. We spent the afternoon on Jonah's crisis plan instead of my parents' drama. Emergency student aid forms. Housing office calls. a friend with a couch, a calendar for the next 30 days. It wasn't glamorous, but it was real, help that didn't demand a signature. Diane pivoted once she realized intimidation wasn't enough. A courier dropped an envelope on Rosa's porch, a settlement agreement offering $25,000 for relocation if I signed an NDA and refrained from further defamatory statements. Jonah's eyes stuck on the number. Maya, that could fix a lot. I know, I said, and I meant it. The money could buy rent, therapy, breathing room, for both of us. It could also buy their mask back. So I wrote one email to my parents from a new address and kept it clean. No NDA. All communication in writing. Correct the trust filings. Admit the forgery. Stop contacting my employer. If you retaliate again, I report it. I didn't send it with rage. I sent it like a boundary in a care plan. Clear and enforceable. That evening my supervisor called. We reviewed the complaint, she said. We're closing it. But Maya, be careful. I watched Jonah load his bag into his friend's car, shoulders straighter than they'd been in weeks, and felt the first hint of relief. Paul replied, "You signed already," and I knew he meant something else. Paul's, "You signed already," haunted me until I called Meridian back with Rosa sitting beside me like an anchor. The woman on the line didn't sound threatening. She sounded worried. "Ms. Rennert," she said. "Our records show a beneficiary consent was submitted electronically on March 12th at 11:42 a.m. with an IP address traced to the hospital network." My throat went dry. I was in the ER at 11:42. "I'm aware," she said quietly. "That's why we're calling." The word I dreaded landed in my lap anyway. They had used my crisis, my hospital visit, as cover. I pulled up my admission paperwork from the patient portal. On page 3 was a digital signature capture, my shaky finger scribble from when I could barely breathe. A signature I didn't even remember giving. Paul had taken that scribble and turned it into consent. The bank asked for my police report number. The state registry sent a follow-up email. "Your submission has been forwarded for review." A week later, Diane's foundation website went dark. 2 weeks later, a board member resigned publicly, and Diane's name vanished from the charity event calendar like it had never been there. My parents tried one last time to control the narrative. Diane sent a text from a new number. "We did it for the family. Please don't ruin us." I didn't respond. I forwarded it. The hardest part wasn't watching their image crack. It was watching Jonah grieve the parents he thought he had. Some nights he stared at the ceiling on Rosa's couch and whispered, "I don't know who they are." "Neither do I told him. "But we know who we are." I went back to work after my leave ended. I still sat with families in fluorescent rooms. I still helped people build plans out of nothing. The difference was I stopped pretending love was supposed to hurt. Rosa hung a small wind chime on her porch the day Jonah got approved for emergency aid. We stood there in the cold, listening to it click softly, like a tiny bell marking time. If you're reading this and your family's love comes with contracts, do what I didn't do soon enough. Screenshot everything, freeze your credit, and trust the paper over the promises.